A lot of people try to force a black and white understanding on something that is literally more complex than a rainbow. When someone's talking about their healing journey or, healing parts of themselves, a lot of the time that's met with like, I didn't realize you were sad. And people want it to be like, you were sad and now you're happy. That it was like, you were a broken person and now you're a healed person. And there's very little room in most people's understanding of somebody else's journey for the nuance and for the fact that like many things can be true at once. And not only that, that it's like all things can be true at once, right? Like I have been the happiest version of myself while also being the saddest version of myself. Those things live inside of me at all times. One of them might be leading at a certain moment, but that alive version, that cave dwelling version, that, childlike version, the one that can't find herself, the one that's overflowing with joy, all of that exists in me at all times, and again, always have. The versions of me that were like happy and carefree and adventurous and just out there doing whatever my heart told me to do when I was 24, 25, that was real. And that version of me also had all of this like darkness and turmoil that I just had figured out a way. It's very much like having like a lifelong injury of some kind where, maybe your shoulder is messed up and it's not so much that you can't use your arm, but you also kind of have to like do things in a certain way to like not aggravate it, right? So you figure out how to kind of just do everything in life to not aggravate the shoulder. It becomes so routine that you don't even really realize you're doing it because it's the only way that you've ever really existed in your body. And then maybe one day something happens where you fall or there's a bigger injury or something that really messes that up and makes you realize how messed up this was and how much you had actually been kind of contorting everything you were doing in your life to accommodate this thing that you really just didn't even, it was always kind of there. And when you go back to heal it, it's not now just being like, oh, I'm just going to make my shoulder stronger. You've got to go in and reconfigure. First of all, it is strengthening that, but it's figuring out how that's connected to everything else and what kind of contortions you're doing to accommodate that. And then all of a sudden there's a muscle over here that's too weak or too strong because it's been also accommodating that. And it's all connected and it goes so much deeper than you realize. And normally you don't get your attention brought to it until something larger happens that makes you even realize that you've been bent out of shape, right? You were playing games, you were running, you were hanging out with your friends with your funky shoulder before, and it all seemed fine, except for maybe that sometimes like, oh, it's a little weird, but whatever. And then there's that moment where you're like, oh, this is a problem. And now I've got to fix it and heal it. And that's literally what the mental spiritual journey is, where it's like you figure out ways to just kind of be like, oh no, like this is good. And you are enjoying life and you are doing these things. And then often there is something external that happens or something within you that you just realize that you're like, this is kind of uncomfy. And as you start kind of being like, oh, I'm going to figure out how to heal this, you realize all of these pieces mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically also, because it's all connected, all of these things that are connected to one another and the ways that you have been bent out of shape and the ways that you have been contorting yourself to try to just kind of live a life that you didn't even realize you were contorting yourself to live.